What I'd like to do is start with what your first ever song that you heard, or the first song or album that you ever bought, and what was the kind of influence that had on what you've done subsequently?
I think my first memory of that really was my dad's album, the Super Guitar of Lightning Red, which was a kind of guitar maestro guy. And I don't even know the guy's name, obviously it's Lightning Red, you know. But that's the first thing I remember, and it totally got me hooked on guitar, you know, as a kid. Right. As for the first record I bought, I don't know if I should say it, but it was...
Please do, because that sounds as though it's going to be a good story.
Rock and Roll 2 by Gary Glitter, you know. Rock and Roll Part 2, yeah.
There's not really any answer to that.
No, there isn't.
What about yourself?
Although he did have a good band, Gary Glitter.
He did.
An excellent band.
Aye, excellent band.
Because I've seen them. My earliest memory is probably All Shook Up, Elvis Presley. My older cousin had a record collection back then, and that's sort of first music I remember hearing that made my ears go, whoa, what's this? As to the first album I ever bought, I really couldn't say what the first album was I bought, it's that long ago. But it was probably the Beatles or Rolling Stones, one of them would have been the first album that I bought personally. I was into American music shortly after that, but that was the main bands in Britain, and later on all the 60s bands, King, Hollies, blah blah, all that sort of stuff. That was the early sort of influences that I was listening to.
What was the first kind of American album that you bought, or that you were aware, or the first American artist, apart from...
That I was aware of, the first American was Bob Dylan. And then after that I get into the sort of West Coast sounds, Eagles, Poco, and then eventually Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, and Van Morrison, blah blah, all that sort of stuff. So really I went for the American music and the big wide back then. As I say, I became what they call a deadhead. I loved the Grateful Dead. What I loved about their music was the fact that they would jump off the edge and play for 2 hours non-stop. That appealed to me. Although I did like the 3-minute pop song as well.
Would you consider yourself a deadhead as well, Mark?
I liked the Grateful Dead, but when I was growing up, well, in a teenager in the 70s, I'm afraid it was all the kind of pop bands that got me interested, and I missed out on the whole American thing that was going on at the time, which was a pity, because once I discovered it, you know, looking back, I found all this new music that's been out for years. But yeah, I love the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers, you know, all these great bands for the kind of West Coast of America. And as I say, it was a new find for me, you know, later on.
You've been described as a kind of Scottish travelling wilburys, which probably means there's a wee bit of a story before you all got to this today, so maybe you can tell us a wee bit about that.
Well, we've all been around the block, as they say. I started doing covers bands in the mid-60s. And then I moved out to Glasgow about 15 years after that. And that's really when I started my songwriting. Later on, I met up with Matt and then Billy, and that really was the formation of Cousti.
Yeah. I'm much the same, yeah, playing with blues bands with Billy in younger days, moving on to weddings, function bands, tribute bands, acoustic music, and just say when I got together with Pete, we just stuck at it.
Right. That's about the same as me as well, because I was playing in club bands. I mean, I had a rock band when I was 18. I played in Glasgow. Came out of that, went into the clubs, and that taught me how to play all sorts of different types of music and stuff like that. And then I went back into blues and rock, playing in all different bands around about the local venues. And I met up with Matt again, and Matt told me that he had met Pete, and says he's a good songwriter, writes some stuff, and we're looking to put an original band together, so would you be interested? First thing I asked was, what kind of music is it? And they said it's sort of acoustic orientated, and I was sort of, well, I don't know about that. I like my rock music, my kicking stuff, you know. But he managed to talk me into going down to Pete's house, and once I got there and I heard some of Pete's songs, I says, oh, I liked what I heard, and I stuck around, and it's developed into this today.
I mean, it takes me on in terms of the roots thing to Bob Harris, who obviously has been a big supporter of the band, and as has Alan McGee of Creation Records, both of whom appeared in the video.
Yeah.
And it brings me on to kind of Sweetest Tunes, because in some ways there's a great synergy between Bob Harris and his tradition in terms of Radio 2 and his show, and equally Alan McGee with his statement about Teenage Fanclub.
Yeah.
I can't remember if you were the older uncles
Yeah,
or the
that's,
grandfathers of the Teenage Fanclub.
I think
but
I did
maybe
say
you
the
can
older uncles.
Did you say uncles?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right, I'll go with that. How did those kind of things come about in terms of Bob Harris and Alan McGee?
Well, initial contact with Bob Harris was through a DJ called Rob Ellen from up north, who'd initially got in touch with me and Matt through MySpace, asking us to maybe come up and do some shows up there. And he knows Bob Harris through his own Roots sort of label with some of the artists that he's been working with over the years. So initially he sent a demo to Bob Harris when he was in hospital with prostate cancer about 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was. And Bob was very taken, touched by it, he said. And got back in touch with Rob, asking him to thank the band and so on. So initially that was how Bob came into the picture.
When we sent the CD down to you, you were at quite a low ebb, weren't you, as far as your health was concerned?
Yeah,
at
when
that
I
time?
originally heard the music, it was soon after I'd been diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Yeah.
So, and getting it gave me a fantastic lift.
Yeah, I remember you coming straight back with the email and
I was
everything.
really touched.
Yeah.
And, you know, I loved the sentiment and the thought, and that you'd done that, you know, I thought it was a lovely thing. So, obviously then, when you got in touch with me and said, could I be a part of this?
Yeah.
Obviously I wanted to do it because you've been so kind to me.
Interesting to know how you guys got together in terms of music and in terms of
Okay.
Alan, how you heard about Pete's band.
Right. Well, I had no idea that Peter was Peter Junior's father, obviously, and I was just kind of acquaintances with him on Facebook, and we were talking one day on Facebook, and he said, "Oh, you know, blah blah blah. Here, we send you some music." And I listened to it, and it was like the Teenage Fanclub kind of thing, that kind of vibe, West Coast, kind of like American West Coast. And then he went, "Do you know that's my dad?" And I went, "You're having a laugh." And he went, "No, that's actually my dad's band." So I went, "Oh, amazing. And so you're the manager of your dad?" And he went, "Yeah, I am." And I went, "Oh, that's amazing." Right? And then about a month later, he went, "Will you be in my dad's video?" Which, of course, there's only one answer to that, which is yes.
The hours get late, but I just can't wait. Get myself settled down.
Age means absolutely jack shit to like people that like music. Do you know what I mean? Which is great. You know? But then again, Neil Young is like 64, so or 66, and McCartney's old, and it's like, you know what? They're both. I don't think it really does. Actually, the more I think about it, I don't think age does play even a significant role in why people like music at all, you know.
I mean, I thought that was one of the more emotional songs that you played on Friday. So
Well,
would
Malik is, it's quite emotional to me because as a kid I used to holiday there with my parents, my mum and dad, you know, my cousins would all come. In fact, my cousin mentioned that the other day. It totally reminds him of the holidays we had in Arisaig.
Some good friends of mine, they ask me how I'm doing, I tell them just fine.
When I was writing the song, I realised that it's not my words that's coming out here, it's my mum's words now that my dad's passed on, you know. So every time I sing it, I get a wee emotional thought about it, and I love the fact that people think the song is emotional, you know. So I'm very happy with the way it's turned out, but That's basically what my league is about.
When I went to Tijuana, across the borderline at Tijuana, and the thing that struck me was the amount of people that were just sitting by the Rio Grande, the river, just looking across the river, and it seemed to me that like they were watching for something, but really they were just sitting there daydreaming, having a picnic. The kids would be playing about. It was just generally, let's just sit here, because like 200 yards away where they stay on the hillside wasn't much better. You're as well going down to the riverside and join in the sort of community that was obviously building up at that point. They also done a lot of selling of small items, you know, like in the song Borderline, I talk about a young kid coming up with a box with chewing gum and sweets, and selling these things to people driving into the gas station to get gas for the car. So that was happening quite a lot on the Borderline. It's the first time I'd ever seen it. You know, hundreds of people, I mean hundreds, coming out with things in their shoulder, walking along the cars. Do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy that? Which is fantastic. As I say, it was kids to old people, just out there trying to make a buck.
Who's gonna run for it? Who's got the yearn for the life? For the life that lies behind. They're behind the borderline.
But I think the idea of them sitting at that riverbank looking across to the US of A, and you could tell with it, especially the kid came into the garage and we stepped out the wagon we were in, and I could see her eyes literally bang, goodness me, look at the inside of this air-conditioned, more than a car, it's got everything inside there, it's got television, it's got fridge, and it really struck me, you know, that something that I took for granted. People like that were totally gobsmacked, living in the poverty that they lived in. As I say, I was taken to tears writing about it a day or two after I'd been there. I went back to LA and I sat down in the room and I started writing about the experiences of what I'd seen. And it wasn't until maybe 5, 6, 7 years later I actually come up with the song to go with the words. I love performing live, always have. Obviously at my age I would rather just sit back and no bother my backside with any of that. But I love it that much that when I get a taste of it, I'm quite happy to get another taste of it. And Peter makes it easy for me to get another taste of it. So because I love it so much is the main reason that I keep doing it. It's you can't beat an audience. It's great being able to do albums and videos and so on and so on. But it's no get the same automatic reaction, something that's real, that's happening right there and then. You only get one take. When you do a live gig, you don't get, oh, that wasn't quite right, can I try it again? You only get one take, and that's what I love about it, because sometimes on that one take you can do something in the music that wasn't planned, or it's a happy accident, or whatever, and that, for me, is what makes a live gig so special.
And is that the addictive bit of music?
That's the addictive bit of music for me, the live bit.
And I think as well, it's like, just because you're all playing at the same time, there's an energy.
Oh, most definitely. It's like you're all one. In the group, you're all one. When it's all going at one, there's no better feeling, none at all.